If one child disappears, it's a tragedy. But when it starts to feel like it's happened before, that's when it becomes something much darker. Before you read it, before you buy it, find out if it's worth your time and money. Today we're going to be looking at The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. This book spent over 40 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list, and it's also been nominated for 9 major literary awards, including the Edgar Award for Best Novel, the Macavity Award for Best Novel, and the British Book Award for Crime and Thriller Book of the Year, which should give you a sense of the level of storytelling you're stepping into here. A slow-burning psychological crime story that draws you in with its eerie atmosphere and keeps tightening its grip through emotional depth, quiet tension, and deeply human characters, making it hard to walk away once it starts to unfold. Here's how this works. I'm going to walk you through the first quarter of the book in detail, so you can really understand the setup, the characters, and where the story is headed. Then I'll shift into a broader synopsis of the remaining 3 quarters of the story, keeping that part spoiler-free so you can decide if it's something you want to experience for yourself. So the story takes place in a remote, heavily wooded region of Pennsylvania, centered around an exclusive summer camp for girls, Camp Emerson. At its core, this book is about disappearance, legacy, and the idea that some events don't stay buried, no matter how much time passes. And the situation the characters are dealing with is essentially this. A teenage girl, Barbara Van Laar, vanishes from camp in the middle of the night, without a clear trace, and almost immediately, the case begins to echo an earlier disappearance involving her younger brother, who went missing years before and was never found. Early on, we're introduced to Barbara Van Laar. She's not just another camper. She's part of the family that owns the camp, the land, and much of the surrounding area. That status immediately changes how people react to her disappearance. Alongside her, you have a range of characters whose perspectives slowly build the full picture. Camp counselors who are responsible for supervision, but may have missed something. Investigators who are trying to separate fact from assumption. And members of the Van Laar family, who carry a history that feels increasingly relevant. What's important is how these characters connect. There's a clear tension between wealth and the working-class staff. There's emotional distance within the family itself. And there's an underlying sense that certain truths have been avoided rather than confronted. What makes these characters matter early on is that each one reveals a different layer of the story, and none of those layers feel complete on their own. So as the story begins, everything appears structured and controlled. The camp is operating normally, routines are in place, and there's a sense of order. But that illusion breaks almost instantly when Barbara is discovered missing. And what stands out right away is how little evidence there is. No clear signs of struggle, no obvious explanation, just absence. And this is important because it creates immediate uncertainty. Did she leave on her own, or was she taken? From there, the search begins, and at first, it feels methodical. Staff members are questioned, campers are accounted for, the surrounding woods are combed. But almost immediately, small inconsistencies start to surface. What the author is doing here is layering tension in a very controlled way. You're not getting dramatic reveals, you're getting subtle shifts. As we move forward, we start to learn more about Barbara herself. She's not entirely comfortable in her environment. There's a sense of pressure tied to her family name, and hints that she may have been struggling internally in ways that weren't fully visible to others. At the same time, the story begins introducing elements from the past. The disappearance of her younger brother is brought back into focus, and the parallels are impossible to ignore. Same family, same land, same unresolved questions. This introduces a critical shift in the narrative. Now, the story isn't just about finding Barbara, it's about understanding whether these 2 events are connected. As the investigation deepens, attention turns toward the camp staff and the local community. And this is where the story becomes more layered. You start to see how different people interpret the same event in completely different ways. Some believe this is an isolated incident. Others feel like something has been wrong for a long time, and the woods themselves begin to feel like more than just a setting. They become a kind of silent force, something vast, unknowable, and capable of hiding things that may never be fully uncovered. As we move further into this first quarter of the book, more details begin to emerge. Barbara's behavior leading up to her disappearance raises questions. Certain timelines don't fully line up, and there are subtle indications that not everyone is being completely truthful. And at this point, a larger pattern starts to form. This isn't just a mystery built on a single event. It's a story built on accumulation, of secrets, of silence, and of things left unresolved. From this point forward, I'm not going to get into any spoilers, but I will give you a clear sense of where the story goes and what it explores in the other 3/4 of the rest of the book. From here, the story expands into a layered investigation that moves between past and present, gradually connecting events that initially seemed separate. The conflicts become more centered around truth, memory, and the influence of power. Who controls the narrative and who gets overlooked? The tone becomes more psychologically intense, with a stronger emphasis on emotional consequences rather than just the outcome of the mystery. And overall, the book starts exploring ideas like the weight of family legacy, the long-term impact of unresolved trauma, and the way silence can shape reality just as much as truth. At a deeper level, this story leans heavily into human elements like identity, fear, control, and the need to make sense of something that may not have a clean explanation. Without getting into specifics, the trajectory of the story builds toward a slow unraveling, where each new piece of information doesn't just answer questions, it creates new ones. What this book does exceptionally well is build tension through restraint. It doesn't rush. It doesn't rely on shock. Instead, it creates a steady sense of unease that grows stronger the more you understand the characters and their history. Where it may not work for everyone is pacing. If you're looking for something fast-paced or action-heavy, this may feel slower than expected. But for me, that deliberate pacing is exactly what makes the story work. The time it takes to explore and fully develop those human elements makes everything feel more grounded and real. And it avoids the kind of forced or artificial consequences that some stories rely on just to move the plot forward. However, if you appreciate psychological depth, layered storytelling, and a mystery that stays with you long after you've finished it, this is exactly that kind of book. If this helped you get a better sense of the book, consider subscribing. I'll be doing more breakdowns like this. Also, a like to this video would be highly appreciated. If you know anyone that might enjoy this book, please share this video with them.